All right. Hello, good people. This is Sheila. I'm a conscious empath, a master Reiki practitioner, a poet, sketch artist, a handcraft artisan, and the founder of BohemianWomanRising.com, where we challenge social constructs in pursuit of spiritual transformation. And I created the Fierce Boho Women interview segment to celebrate established and emerging women in business and the arts, in all areas of business and the arts, so that they can share their insights, wisdom about their journeys along the way. And with that, before I introduce our guests, I want to thank and shout out Katharina Mitersol, who's working in the background managing our tech. If you want to learn more about her business, which is Project 5356, please visit her Instagram profile and you can read about her um, operations, consultancy services. Thank you, Katharina. And so with that, I'm going to introduce Ms. Elissa Smart, certified yoga instructor. Hello.
Hi, thank you
How's it
so much for having me. Thank you so much for having me. Um, I love that, first of all, the last time we saw each other was
Your
when I,
restorative?
yeah, for restorative that I was teaching prior to me
Mm-hmm,
getting certified. So
mm-hmm.
it's really nice to have this full circle moment with you and to meet Katharina and to see these projects unfolding in the midst of Women's History Month, it seems
Yes,
like, right? There's this
exactly.
surge of surge of creativity going on. So it's really cool. It's
Yes,
really cool.
yes,
So thank you. Thank you for having me today.
absolutely. So, would you mind sharing your story about your yoga journey?
Absolutely. So let's see. Um, I have been practicing consistently, let's say the last 5 years.
Wow.
Now, inconsistently, I've been practicing for probably 10 or 12 or 13. Um, so I'm very familiar with the practice. I actually started out as a Pilates girl, which is very funny to me now, and I always laugh because when I was a Pilates girl, I was
Hmm.
like, I will never know how to do yoga. I will never get into yoga. I don't know anything about yoga. I was very much so into the idea. I have a background in different sports. So I was an athlete for a while. So the transition from Pilates to yoga was
Hmm.
definitely more spiritual for me
Hmm.
because initially when I was in this space of being a Pilates girl,
Hmm.
I was very much focused on what my body looked like,
Mm.
feeling like I had a certain type of shape,
Mm.
um, being keeping up with the Joneses. Yeah.
Mhm.
So back then I was a big Equinox girl, spending all
Mm.
my
Okay.
hard-earned money.
Mhm.
Oh, and I still, I love their facilities, but definitely when you've been in the fitness world for a while, you understand that certain places they have their own amenities. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was a big Pilates girl, and then life started happening,
Mhm.
and I started slowing down in different type of ways in a
Mm.
physical way, and not for any injury or any specific reason, but because of my schedule. Yeah.
Okay.
So being here in a corporate setting and
Mm.
prioritizing partying and boys and
Mhm.
other stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then eventually I was like over equinox, you go in your lags of not
Mhm.
doing anything. So during that lag, at some point I walked into a yoga class and that started the on and off journey that I have with yoga, just
Wow.
to give you like a little bit of the background of how I got there in the first place.
That's wonderful. I studied Pilates. That was about, I studied Pilates. I took Pilates classes, but that was about 15 years ago. And
Yeah.
I practiced Pilates for about 4.5 years. And from what, and it was through my university. you could take certain classes. So that was one of the
Yeah.
things I signed up for. And the instructor, she was like two people removed. Her instructor is like one person removed from Joseph Pilates, the person who
Okay.
who established Pilates.
Nice. Yeah.
And I tell you, I loved it. I loved it. It's not easy, but it
No.
was great. And I was probably in the best shape of my life at that time.
Yeah.
I was in my 40s then. But it was great, and I understand that actually that Pilates is born out of yoga.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
so
very new
I knew it.
concept of
Yeah,
workout, and it's in a resurgence again, right? I
yes.
think back in the 2000s it had, it had
Hmm.
hit its,
Peak
popular
is.
peak,
Hmm.
and then it kind of yoga came back in, and
Hmm.
now Pilates is the new is the new hot place to go
I
back
mean,
to. So,
there's a place for all of it, I think.
yeah, yeah.
You know.
And I think it's a nice hybrid too
Oh.
between someone who's trying to find in between, right,
Hmm.
of athleticism
Hmm.
and restoration.
Yeah, it definitely helped me with my some of my challenges, the Pilates.
Yeah.
Um, And the other thing I learned about yoga that it actually started out as a form of meditation, and then it kind
Yes.
of transformed itself into a physical practice, which is all very fascinating to me.
Yeah. The eight limbs of yoga. So I'm not sure how familiar either, of you with the whole eight limbs of yoga from the Yoga Sutras.
Not very much.
So It I go, bear with me while I,
Sure,
like, divulge information
sure.
that everybody's like, "Okay, cool." But the 8 limbs of yoga includes a number of different, kind of like steps that,
Mhm,
uh, Patanjali says, and I always pronounce his name wrong, so pardon me, but he goes through those 8 limbs, and one of them is the asana, right? The pose itself, and then there's also the dhyana, and then the pranayama, and then there's a couple of other ones, that I'm forgetting, but basically that they're all their own separate things, right?
mhm,
And they are all together. They're all separate, but together they make the sutra of
mhm,
yoga. So
mhm,
it's sutra is just the word for thread in Sanskrit,
mhm,
and the meditation, the breath work, the poses,
mhm,
the abstaining, all of these things tied together to make up the practice of yoga itself, right?
mhm,
So a lot of people in the Western world, including myself, prior to be getting certified in reading and studying more than I have now,
mhm,
is like yoga is the thing, right? Like yoga
mhm,
is the poses of this, but actually it's just like the word yoga is yoke, right? Like to yoke these things in this sutra, the threading of these things that make the complete practice.
ah,
So that's when you hear a yoga teacher say, "How are you going to practice on and off the mat?" And you're like, "What does that even mean?" Well, you meditate a lot of times off the mat too, right? You do breath work off the mat, you do
mhm, mhm,
contemplation off the mat, you think outside
mhm,
of just doing yoga, yes.
mhm,
So that's what that could mean, right? That could
mhm.
mean like, how are you? Yes, we did some meditation on the mat today, but like you should meditate outside of doing
Oh
poses
yeah,
as well.
oh
Yeah.
yeah. So I think you might have touched on it a little bit, but what inspired you to become a yoga instructor?
So actually, funny story. I mean, I had thought about it in the past, I think when I was a little bit younger. And I wasn't really sure about it because my dedication and my dristi with it wasn't so concrete at the time. Um, so I'm talking about maybe like 26, right? 27. Um, Still out in the world in those streets, as the kids would call it.
Mhm,
So I didn't feel like it was the right time, and I started going to the Common Earth Company at this
Mhm.
point now, probably 3 years.
Nice.
And, Lisa and I would be practicing. And one morning specifically, it was just her and I was sitting in the front and we finished class. And she's like, "Can I ask you something without, you feeling weird about it?" I said, "You could say whatever you want to me, right?" And she's like, "When are you getting certified?" And I was like, I had heard it recently, right? And I'll be very transparent and open because I want people to understand, like, it's actually I laugh about it a little bit. So my dad, I was taking care of my father who passed away 2 years ago. And I was his primary caretaker. And
Mm,
my primary, I mean a nurse,
mm,
basically,
mm.
and also in a full-time job in New York
Sure.
City. My dad was in Newark. I
Mm,
was, going between Jersey City, Newark,
mm,
the hospitals in Livingston, the doctor's office in East Orange in Newark, and
mhm,
all of that stuff, right? So I was just like a shell of a person,
mhm.
really.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I don't it's so funny when people ask me about certain things that happened during that time. I'm like, I have no memory of that,
Mhm,
right? They say that grief will cause you to forget
mm,
things, like
mhm,
completely black out stuff.
mhm,
So, Lisa said this to me well after the memorial, well after I had settled some affairs. And I'm still kind of realizing this, but like I was in that for almost 2 years, right? My dad was, actively getting worse for about a year,
I'm so
but
sorry.
year prior to that, I was in the zone as well.
Mhm,
So, it was a long time that I was just taking care of others.
mhm,
And I was in a really horrible relationship at some point, that I
mm,
eventually got out of. But I was just on this carousel that
mhm,
just I had just like stars in my eyes, right? Nothing was going on behind the eyes. I
mhm.
was just kind of
Sure,
just going round and round.
sure.
And so when I allowed myself to, I mean, the grief doesn't stop, yes, but when I allowed myself to grieve, to
Mhm,
remove myself from the community, remove myself from the world, really. I had a partner at the time who was super supportive
mhm,
when my dad passed, and very protective of me. So he was really just like, "We're gonna do whatever it is that you need today, right? If that's for
mhm,
a walk, that's for a walk. If that's feeding the ducks, we're gonna go feed the ducks. If you want to cry and just walk outside on the doorstep and then walk back in the house, then that's
mhm,
also okay."
mhm,
So I was really blessed in the sense that I had a lot of support there. And yoga also obviously was blindly supporting me without
mhm,
me really relying on it that way, right?
mhm,
So when Lisa said it to me, it planted a seed.
mhm,
And then I said to myself everything that I just said to you both. I hadn't done something for myself in a very long time. And I also felt the powers and the impact that just consistently going to yoga during that process of me taking care of other people, I
mhm,
would have completely unraveled if I didn't have that practice, at least in my
mhm.
back pocket, right?
Right, right.
So the fact that I had been doing that subconsciously without really making it a thing, it was my home to go back to once my dad left, his earthly body.
Crossed over. Yeah.
Right. So when I had that to come back to, it was seamless, right? I didn't even think about it. So when Lisa said it, I thought about it. I thought about it. I put it in my brain. I can kind of be that way
Mhm,
when I'm like, this is what I'm doing, and
mhm,
that's what's happening.
mhm,
The financial situation was difficult, right? Just speaking very openly, because that can hinder other people, I think, from trying.
mhm,
Um, but I saved and I made it work because it was something I knew on the other end was going to be worth it.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so I just really went with a lot of intuition in my gut. I know that's rough to hear for some people because you're like, what does that mean? But
Oh, it
literally what
is.
it means, right?
It,
Like,
it is not rough for me to hear at all.
yeah,
As an empath, and you're telling
right.
me that you follow your intuition. That's the most sovereign, authentic thing you can do for yourself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it
kudos
was
to you.
yes, yeah, thank you. It was really it made sense after a certain point, and then when I picked a place and a time,
Mhm.
and then the money was paid, right? It
Mhm.
was like, okay, we're doing this. And then um another big realization that I had was like I haven't done something like that for myself in years, right? When's the
Mm.
last time you graduated from somewhere? High
Mm.
school, college, yeah? College. So something like that that you see sometimes your friends or social media people go through nursing or this or
Mhm.
that or
Mhm.
elevating their life, and I hadn't done anything like that in a long time, so throwing myself in also felt like a rebirth in a sense.
That is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. And I mean, that you followed your instincts and your intuition is profound because most of us would not. We would question it or we would dismiss it because we're so caught up in the whole 3D world construct of what the idea, we have to have a 9 to 5, you have to work, 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 a desk job. And no, that's not why we're here on this planet. Not at all. You're
Right.
doing, you're Elissa, you're doing really good energy work, which the planet needs right now. I can't say that enough. And my spirit guys are like, I'm getting goosebumps. They're just like confirming that you're doing the good work.
Thank you. No, I mean, the other I have to mention her because they're like my pillars, right? Like,
Hmm.
um, and my therapist, Jill, who is a priestess, a life coach. I hate even calling her a therapist because to me, like, she's like,
Hmm.
you know, she overpowers all of those words, but
Mhm. Mhm.
she was a great support in it as well.
Mhm.
Um, you know, there's a lot of therapy out there, and that's why
Mhm.
it's so another thing I like to talk about therapy, yoga, meditation,
Mhm.
right? All those things.
Mhm.
But it's tough with the therapy to suggest that, especially brown and black people, because it's a lot not in our
Mhm.
ancestry in a way, right?
Yes,
In
yes,
our
right.
recent ancestry,
Right,
right?
right.
And it's looked down upon in certain ways, especially if a family's religious, right? Those
Mhm.
type of things.
Mhm.
But there's talk therapy, right? And
Oh,
then
yeah.
there's spiritual therapy. There's
Art
all different
therapy.
avenues. Yeah, I have a good mix of all of those things.
Me too.
So I'm very blessed in that sense, and
Mhm.
she was very much so like, you're a healer. So like, let's channel this somewhere that's going to be received well, right?
Mhm.
No more toxic romantic relationships,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
No more toxic friendships, toxic family relations.
Mhm.
Let's channel this into something that is going to be helpful and that you believe in, right?
I love it.
Yeah.
Um, so my next question is three parts. Um, what, what, why did you choose the Vinyasa practice over like Kundalini or Hatha? And then can you explain what Vinyasa yoga is and what restorative yoga is?
Hmm. Oh, okay, you're getting me on my exam questions.
Oh.
So I'll be very honest because I don't want to misquote myself.
Mhm.
Kundalini without having it in front of me.
Oh, I don't need you. I don't. You go. I just wanted to know more about what was it about
About it for
Vinyasa.
me.
Yeah.
If me, I'll be honest. The vinyasa flow is the I'd say the most practice,
Okay.
right? In the Western world, I'm gonna say that very broad terms, because when you go out to
Did you
LA,
freeze?
yeah, a little frozen.
Uh-oh.
Hold on. Oh, now you're back. Now
Oh,
you're
okay.
back. Okay. Um, but I say that very broad statement, right? Because I'm also speaking from a East Coast perspective. Um, I would say like out in the West Coast,
Mm-hmm.
Kundalini is really big. I think there's Hatha and Vinyasa, I think is very practiced, like in a general sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, for me, I think it was just a gravitation towards what I already practice and know,
Uh-huh. Uh,
but also a deeper understanding of, right?
uh-huh.
I think we've been, not we, but we
Mm-hmm.
um, have been getting into these poses just mindlessly with the
Mm-hmm.
way that some of these studios lead or teach, or the
Mm-hmm.
way that my own practice has been, right? That I could be speaking for people and I shouldn't be. But you know, for the last 13 years, I've walked into a studio, I've gotten into Warrior 2, I've
Mm-hmm.
gotten into Downward Facing Dog. But why?
Mm-hmm.
What do your hips feel like? What do your
Right.
knees feel like?
Right.
Why when you turn your elbows out a certain way, does that make your shoulders and your scapula and your neck feel a certain type of way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so having a deeper understanding of these poses that we've been so familiar with just in a commodification level, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
even children know what
Mm-hmm.
downward facing dog is, right? Just because the
True.
yoga has been so, widespread in regards to marketing and money
Mm-hmm.
making.
Right.
So I wanted to know. I wanted to know the deeper root, the deeper understanding, and I wanted to be able to explain that to somebody if
Mm.
I was teaching it to them. For me, I dabble in a lot of restorative on
Yes.
a more consistent level. So
Okay.
that's why I initially taught restorative prior to me being certified, because that's what I was comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
I am a big restorative, yin, sound bath, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, a little vinyasa. You know what I mean? So I'm very like in restorative yin
Yeah.
world all the time.
Yeah.
So for me, that's where I was being called to. I don't have my certification in restorative yet, but
Mm-hmm.
um
Oh, you're gonna get it.
yeah, and also I'll be honest, and I'm not, again, I don't want to speak for the community, but um, I feel comfortable enough to teach it to a student
Mm-hmm.
and be able to communicate its
Mm-hmm.
benefits and
Mm-hmm.
being safe and all those good things. So,
Mm-hmm.
yes, obviously, I want to get a more technical, deeper understanding of some things, but on
Mm-hmm.
a level of being able to share
Mm-hmm.
and get the community exposed to it, I
Mm-hmm.
feel very comfortable with dabbling in teaching that before I get certified. So I've already have a couple of classes on the board in April
Mm-hmm.
for me to teach restorative again at the Common Earth Company.
I'll
But
keep my
I
eye
love
out.
yes, please. I'll make sure to share it again. But you know, it was a challenge, really. That's really why I chose it. I'm sure I could, and also Kundalini, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a hard style to jump
Uh-huh.
to teach if you don't practice it. I think anything is hard to teach if you don't practice it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I have no experience with Kundalini.
I don't really
Or
understand Kundalini, but I was just curious about the practices you chose to flow to.
yeah, it's more. I think it's uh, because that's what I know. I
Yeah.
think that's what most people know. I think
Yeah.
when you're teaching in the US, right? Let's just say
Yes.
the US, because every time I'm like the Western world, they're like, what? I'm like
Yeah.
the United States, right? most people in the US who just dabble in yoga and aren't
Mhm.
super divulged into Hinduism and all
Mhm.
the lineages are
Mhm.
practicing a hatha or a vinyasa flow.
So I wanted to share this with you as an empath. When I took your restorative class, I I I definitely felt your higher self coming through you while you were teaching.
Mm,
You your
mm,
your there was such your voice was so soothing in an otherworldly way.
mm,
I'm That's how I experienced it as empathically, and energetically you were like light. You would lift
mm.
like you I'm not sure I can explain it with words, but I felt energetically it makes a lot of sense to me. It was like it was a profound experience. I'm not sure how you experienced yourself during
Mm.
that, but it was I was like, "Whoa, something serious spiritual is going on right here."
I I take a great humbling gratitude and overwhelmed of joy hearing that. Really, truly, that makes me feel, like I've been doing it the right way. Because a lot of it, again, is stuff I just was like, this is, I'm just gonna do this, right? Like I'm just gonna do this, and that was with no formal training, right?
Mhm,
That day was very special for me, just to experience that with you all. I prepared for that day through and throughout, but mainly on my best friend down in Orlando. I had a whole month in Orlando of no work, of no
mhm.
nothing, and I was practicing on my best friend every other day, and I got to like really put love into that sequence through her.
What what came through right now, listening to explain it, is that you were in a seated confidence.
Mm,
There was a knowing. I mean, of course, you know your practice, but there was a spiritual knowing that was flowing through you at the time.
I I I I will definitely say I experienced that, because it's funny, and I'm sure you experience this as your own in your own healer stages and your empath stages. But somebody asked me, they're like, so, you know, what did you say? How did you feel? And I was like, I don't remember.
Mhm,
I don't. I
mhm.
kind of
I feel
showed
like
up and
your higher self was coming through you like fierce,
yeah,
powerful. Like,
it felt something turned on for me.
mhm.
Um,
I
I
saw
had
it.
a s I had a similar feeling this morning doing right before I was prepping for something, and I was like, "Okay, let's go be this Elisa today," right? Like,
Mhm,
that's kind of like my playful way of
mhm.
being like, tapping in and tapping out. No, it was a very special day for
Oh,
me. It
it
was a very
was for
special
me
day.
too,
Yeah,
because
I really appreciate that, and I remember connecting with you then
yeah.
and a lot of the other women after class,
Mhm,
and, I'm not gonna take full credit with my voice. We had, Six who was on the sound bath and the
mhm,
sound bowl, so
mhm.
she is, like, amazing.
That it was for me as an empath. We live on our energy. Our energy is information, and
Yeah,
that whole day was like a spiritual experience for me.
I'm really
So,
glad. I'm really glad, and so I also wanna go back a little bit because I'm gonna refine my answer.
mhm,
Outside of just Lisa, because I spoke on a very topical level, I guess, but
mhm,
outside of Lisa prompting me and asking me
mhm,
when I was gonna get certified,
mhm,
being able to see her
mhm.
create this environment and create these
Yes.
events, right, that allow people to walk into these spaces that
Mhm,
feel safe and like cozy enough for them
mhm,
to do sound work and listen to a
mhm,
sound bath and
mhm.
to a new yoga pose or try yoga for the first time in their life, right?
Yes.
Men coming in
Oh,
of different
yes.
races, backgrounds, and so on and so forth.
She's like a creative, a hub for creatives of
Yes.
all walks of life. And
So
let me just give her a little shout out. Lisa
yeah,
Rose at the Common Earth Company, 99 Monticello Avenue, Jersey City, New Jersey. Um, Oils,
so
anything you can imagine. The healing
yeah,
classes, the yoga classes, the sound bath classes. There's so much more. She sells my jewelry.
yeah,
Um, and it's just a beautiful space to be.
it is.
So
And I mean,
back to you.
even like, yeah, no, I mean, I had a male friend of mine come, and when he left, he was like, "Oh my God." He's like, "That's why you're at class until 3 o'clock every
Mhm,
Sunday." I'm like, "Yeah, because it's not just class, right? It's 100% this healing circle
mhm.
community that we've created amongst each other
Absolutely.
just really organically, really,
And it's
like,
needed. It's so needed. That
yeah,
community right now, and this time on the planet, and what the planet is transitioning through, that
yeah.
community, that common earth community is needed.
And so that was outside of Lisa prompting me, that
Mhm.
is a big focus of mine of what I do and why I'm doing it.
Mhm.
I um am a believer of, of God and the higher power, but obviously the universe and how God creates, the
Mhm.
universe and moves things around. And I think that's interchangeable for people,
Sure.
right? Like whoever your God is, whoever your
Yes,
universe is, whoever
absolutely.
your higher power is.
Mhm.
And I feel really blessed, one, to be in a space where, I'm not rich. Let's just be clear. Go, because I
I'm
don't want
sorry.
anybody to be. I said, I'm not rich.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
let's just be clear, because when I graduated, everybody's like, "Well, what are you going to do about money? Are you going to teach for, $25 a head? Are you going to, how are you going to run your business? How are you going
Mhm.
to?" And I'm like, it's really not a, yes, it's a business, right?
Mhm.
Because technically I'm entering into some type of
Mhm.
exchange. But I'm not worried about money. And I
Right.
don't want to say that in a flippant way, especially in the times that we're in right now, because
Well, you're on
everybody's
the right
worried.
path there, because once you start to worry about the money,
Yeah,
that's a surefire way to push it away from you.
like
You
everything else,
you
right?
need to
Like
trust in the universe to bring what
right.
you want, and speak
Like
about money in a positive way and get that flow coming to you.
exactly. So for me, like I am more wanting to be aligned with whoever I'm working with to
Mhm.
put something together for our community.
For
I for our community.
Oh, yes.
I really, and again, I don't want to say this in a flippant way, but I will a
Mhm.
little bit. I have no interest in teaching a room full of people that want to do headstands and who
Oh, yeah,
have a steady practice.
right.
I don't have any interest in that.
They're out of
If,
balance.
if that's the case, I can just go hang out with my yoga teacher friend,
Yeah,
and we can go
they're
to class together.
demonstrating physically demonstrating how energetically out of balance they are.
That and more so of like, again, it's yes, yes, that's perfectly said, because it becomes an egotistical display of what you
Mhm,
can and cannot do, or
mhm,
whatever, right? Or how strong you are,
mhm.
or and those egotistical displays could be for themselves as
Right?
well, right?
Absolutely.
They're in
Feed
competition
the
with
ego.
themselves.
Feed the
I've been in
ego.
that space as well. I was a track runner, a basketball player, a softball girl. I'm very keen to competition. That is one of
Mhm,
my favorite things to participate in. But
mhm.
I had a very interesting transition and transformation with this program, because when I was called to do certain things as a teacher and in the
Mhm.
program, I was meeting it with a level of rigidity that
Mhm.
it didn't require.
Mhm.
And I was beating myself on the head over and
Yeah.
over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And one day, I literally had a moment in the bathroom, in the kitchen, in the hallway. I'm pacing back and forth in the house. And I'm like, why can't I just get this right? Right. Um, because in my corporate world, in my event planning world, in my um, finishing your to-do list is the way you show yourself
Mhm.
value. Um, that works, rigidity.
Mhm.
But the practice of yoga, meditation, sound healing,
Mhm.
poses, is literally calling for the opposite of that, to meet it with softness.
Yeah.
So I was challenging myself of how to use this rigidity to get to softness, to get
Mm.
to balance. Right?
Mm.
It's like it was
That's kind of
very,
beautiful.
yeah,
And you
it was very interesting.
and you got it. You got that. Most people might not have made those connections, but you made the connections.
Yeah, yeah. So flowing through that mind process, it was, I had other peers that it was very emotionally challenging. It was more because a lot of people are like, wow, I'm sure. And that's the fun part, right? People's reaction was like, wow, I'm sure you're super fit. And I'm
Mhm.
like, you don't think there was anything else going on besides that? You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but that gives me the reminder, like it all goes back full circle. That
Mhm.
gives me the reminder again of what, like, I want to tell you about
Yeah.
why that it was more than just physical. I want to
Yeah.
tell you about why it was deeper than just what I
Yeah.
look like now.
Yeah.
So that really the drive is the community. When I see
Yeah.
people come into class who haven't experienced the Common Earth Company before,
Mhm.
who haven't experienced a yoga class being led by a brown or black person that they can relate to.
Mhm.
Um, and, I saw this beautiful post the other day, a video interview of Sade. And the clip starts out right away, and she's like, "I'm full of contradictions." And
Aren't
she
we
goes
all?
on, yeah, yeah, she goes on to list them, right? So I'm about other yogis that are all about embracing those contradictions,
Right.
right? Outwardly, inwardly, in a group setting. Um,
Imperfection is the truest form of perfection.
Exactly. I've seen a lot of yoga teachers get in front of the yoga class or in a group and say that they're of that mindset,
Mhm.
and then the next moment have a conversation that's the exact opposite of that, or display something that's the exact opposite of that in a
Mhm.
yoga setting, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not perfect either. So that statement wasn't for judgment, but it's
Right.
for
Right.
mindfulness and for
Right.
intentional, making sure that your actions, your words, there's intention and integrity behind it.
Mhm.
That
Makes sense.
that that is what's important. And I had to remember too, another point that I was on my journey with everything. My dad was a track coach in Essex County College in Newark, so he brought a lot of people over from Jamaica,
Mhm.
a lot of people over from different countries, from different
We
states.
lost your volume,
Uh-oh, can you hear me?
audio.
Can you hear me now? Can
I
you hear me now?
I can hear you, Alyssa.
Oh, Sheila, you can't.
Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay. I can hear
Okay,
you now.
okay. So my dad was integral in a lot of people's lives,
Mm.
in regards to getting them through a community college, good enough to be, as prospect for a state college, good enough
Mhm.
to have a scholarship academically,
Mhm.
um, to know how to live as an adult in another country, right, or
Mhm.
another state,
Mhm.
especially Newark.
Mhm. Right.
um, so I realized that my dad was more than just a coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
At his memorial, he was a teacher. He was some people's dads, right? He was a lot of different hats to a lot of different people, men,
Mm-hmm.
women, his peers, his other coach friends. And so when I was, and he was in the Olympics for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was getting ready for my exam, and I was thinking about my dad, I was like, oh my God, I'm just literally doing what my dad did
Mm-hmm.
in my own way, in my career in fashion, I've mentored a ton of different girls on a corporate level.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy it. I enjoy seeing my girls have aha moments. I enjoy
Mm-hmm.
seeing them be ready to be like, I'm out of here. I'm ready for something new. And I'm like, that is quite fine
I
because
love it.
everybody can't do my job, right? So
Right.
um, I it all streamlines together.
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed being a mentor here at Louboutin, and um, I enjoy being a teacher and a student in the same exact
Mm-hmm.
spot in the
Mm-hmm.
yoga world.
I love it. I just have a few more questions before we get to the turn the table segment.
Tell me.
But and listening to you, um, in terms of all of your years of experience, did you freeze again?
No, I
Oh,
think
okay.
maybe I was just sitting
Okay.
that way.
Oh, no, that's fine. Was there anything did you have any epiphanies about the physical body, say, from when you first started until now?
Yeah, yeah. Well, first of all, I feel like I like feel my insides, right? Like I know where they're at. I actually
Mm.
just recently went to the doctor and they told me that I had a hernia. I go,
Mm.
TMI, but I knew something was up, right?
Mhm.
And then I had a friend tell me like, you have a hernia, right? So instead of going on Google and da 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 da,
Yeah.
I can feel my body.
Mhm.
I know
So
my body.
empowering, isn't that?
Yeah, it is, it is, and the breath work,
Mhm.
I'll say it over the breath work, I think is the gateway to that.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
um, you know, understanding that the prana flow and, I I know very well much, when I'm, like, cutting my
Mhm.
different chakras off. I know when
Mhm.
I'm kind of, like, shutting my throat down. I
Mhm.
know when I'm aggravating my stomach by anxiety, doubt, all of those things.
Mhm.
And on a physical level, besides for
Mhm.
those things, I for years now, I've been weightlifting on and off. I run as well.
Mm.
And I obviously paused a bit for this program. And I am the most fit that I've
Mhm.
been in
Mhm.
years. I haven't
Beautiful.
lifted a weight. I haven't touched. And one of my friends saw me and he was like, "Oh my God." He was like, "You
Mhm.
have like abs." And I was like, "I haven't had an ab since I was probably 21."
Yeah.
So
And
it's
yeah,
very
and that
interesting.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
No, no, no. It's just interesting that using your body alone as
Mhm.
an instrument is
Mhm.
enough.
Right, and given Pilates was born out of yoga, that was one of the things I really that surprised me that I got strong physically with just my body weight.
Yep. Yep.
Just using my body weight, you know?
And even just to pause on that simple fact, that simple sentence, like, and be like, "Oh my God, that's really cool."
Yeah.
Right? Like, how cool is that? I had a conversation with someone the other evening. It's like when I'm getting like really overheated because I get overheated often on and off the mat.
Mhm.
um, I check in with my breath. How are you breathing?
Mhm. Mhm.
And the second that I do that, and I'm kind of like, you're okay, let's take a breath. Let's
Yeah.
like really,
Yeah.
go back and try to re-regulate our nervous system. And the second that I do that, I've changed my body temperature.
Yeah. And, breath exercise, breath meditation is a portal activity.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
And it's very, again, like I said to you, I just this past Friday night I went to a yin class that I had a sound bath at the end, and then
Hmm.
right after that yin
Hmm.
class there was a sound bath. So I
Hmm.
was in that, and in the sound bath space, the
Hmm.
portals are like really open. And I was like really going in and out of them. And it's just really
Hmm.
cool experience thing to do. And again, um, a lot of women, I brought my mom to one for the first
Hmm.
time, and it would like changed. She just opened up her eyes to things. I brought Lisa with me and Aretha. We
Hmm.
went once. So yeah, it's physically it it alter it alters perspective too, right? Like talking about your brain being a
Hmm.
vessel and this thing, like you're also exercising your brain, which
Yes.
is another, I think, the deepest part of it.
Hmm.
I don't want to make us like skip a beat, but I've been holding it. I'm gonna run to the restroom
Yes.
and
Yes.
then come right back, okay?
Okay. And
Wonderful.
so you've actually answered a lot of the questions I prepped for you just during our discussion, but
Yeah.
there is just the how do you accommodate different people's physical skill sets in your classes?
Oh, I love this question because it's like one of my main focuses in my teacher practice.
Okay.
Um, I think just letting them be, right?
Oh, I
There are
love
very
that.
there's moments where your ego creeps in
Mm.
and you make it about, oh, am I not being clear? Did I not say this right? Should I show them? Should I change what they're doing? Now, there are times where maybe yes to some of those questions, right?
Mm.
Um, but when you're trying to be open enough, right, to be
Mhm.
available for the entire room,
Right.
um, if you spend too much time with one
Mhm.
individual, you're taking away from other people, right?
Sure.
So, finding that fine line is very interesting. So I have two great examples. This past Saturday, I taught Vinyasa,
Mhm.
and there was a 70-year-old woman in class who was just amazing. Um, and there were some poses that I guess I hadn't actively given them a modification like right in the moment,
Mhm.
but then worked my way into,
Sure.
giving them some options. And there was something that she was, a pose she got into that I just was like, okay, if
Mhm.
you want to stay there, like you can stay there. And she
Mhm.
was like, what about this? I said, you can do that too, right?
Mhm.
Like you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
I had a woman actually during the class that you were in, who sat on a chair the entire time.
Yes. Yes.
And I was like, when I can, I'm going to come around and give you some ideas of what you can
Mhm.
do to help you feel what
Mhm.
we're feeling in that
Mhm.
pose on the mat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I had a moment similarly this past week where I was looking at the room and I was like, are they confused at what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Or are they taking a breath? Are they tired? And
Mhm.
then I was like, you know what's probably happening? A lot of these students come to this class and the class and the sequence is similar, right? Like,
Mhm.
and their body remembers that
Uh-huh.
sequence. And now they're just trying to unremember that sequence
Yeah.
and get into the
Yeah.
groove here, right?
Hear you.
Yoga teachers, I feel like are the best and the worst students, right? Because you get to see, like when we're teaching each other, our bodies are already going into that pose as soon as you say the pose name.
Mhm.
So the reason why I say the worst, because it's great when you want to see everybody doing your sequence perfectly.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
um, if you want to see it in real time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's not going to go that way because everybody's mind is not
Mm-hmm.
wired that way, right?
I hear you.
So you have this preconceived notion that everybody's just going to like pop right into their poses because they know, but really there's a lot of things going on. They're second guessing themselves, they're looking at their neighbor, they maybe their mind is
Mm-hmm.
not in a centered space for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different things. And then there's the latter, right? Which is where my brain went because I
Mm-hmm.
was like, let's not make this about ego, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because um I asked several people, I said, was it clear? Yeah, it was clear. So I'm asking for this feedback, right? I'm like, okay, so I said to myself, well, if it's clear, then what the
Yeah.
heck was going on? You know, like, I'm like, if it's clear. And then I said on my walk home, I said, it's about muscle memory.
Yes.
They didn't know where they were going, so
Mm-hmm.
they weren't necessarily fully into it in regards to the sequence. And once
Mm-hmm.
they, because what I noticed at halfway mark towards the end, everybody knew where they were going, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everybody felt more comfortable. So everybody was looking down at their mat, paying attention to their feet, their stance, however you want to put it, right? They weren't worried about looking at me for a guide or for a reference.
I love it.
So yeah, the the thing about vinyasa is and modifications and all that good stuff, you have like 0.5 seconds before you're going into the next pose. So you have a very short time to scan the room, give a modification, give an adjustment before somebody's going into the next pose,
Ah.
or before you're holding somebody in that pose for a really long time
Mm.
while you're trying to fix somebody else, right?
Sure.
So that I've seen very skilled and experienced teachers be able to snap in and out of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being like helping somebody and being
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, now go into the next
Mm-hmm.
thing, right? Um, I'm still finding that balance, yeah. But yeah, it's a fun balance to play
Mm-hmm.
with. And when you loosen up that rigidity, right, that I was working with at the beginning of the program, that was like, this isn't working, right? This
Mm-hmm.
isn't working for this. Um, it's funnier, it's cooler. People are more comfortable. I
Mm-hmm.
work in luxury fashion, and during one of my cues, I was like, and you can turn your block to the lowest heel height. And I was like, I don't,
Hello? Oh,
can you hear me?
yeah. You, it was like you started. I lost you when you said I don't, and then you came back in.
Oh, I was just saying,
It's Mercury retrograde, people. This is what happens.
yeah.
We're gonna
No,
roll with it. We're just gonna roll with it.
I was just saying,
Hmm.
I was referring to a block as a shoe, basically. And I was like, turn this block to the low heel height. And some of the girls chuckled in class because they know I work where I work. And they were like, okay. But not taking yourself so seriously, which is
Hmm.
really like my life mantra.
Hmm.
Even at my full-time job and I'm training somebody, I'm not in the business of ever making anybody feel lesser than or any of those things, right? So I'm the less serious you take some things, it makes it a little bit more enjoyable. I laugh through everything. I have to. That's just who I am.
Yeah.
Sometimes inappropriately. So I'm again finding the balance between that. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think the less you make. I had a teacher tell me that they were taking a step back from some teaching because of how they were feeling as a teacher, right? And I thought that was beautiful.
Hmm.
Um, to not make it about the
Hmm.
class or this person should be doing that to make me feel better as a teacher.
Right. Right.
Like, no, I'm taking a step back because I just don't like how I'm showing up in that way, right?
I think it's
Um,
beautiful that they had that level of self awareness to do such a thing.
yeah, So yeah, it's I think holding space in class is gets easier for your students when you start like unveiling all of the ego layers that you have about you as a teacher,
Mhm.
you as a person,
Mhm.
whatever you went through that day.
Right.
All of those things are a factor because we're human too, right?
Right.
But it's about being able to like withdraw from all those things for that hour and
Mhm.
like let it be for them.
I love it. This has been such an enjoyable conversation.
Same
And so,
here.
no, thank you. I'm going to invite Katharina Miraso to join us for the next Turn the Table segment where you'll have the opportunity to ask either or both of us a question.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, Katharina, I think we should start. I'm going to start with you because we've been
Yes.
buzzing. Can you? I actually was looking at your Instagram for project 5356. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself, as well as project 5356?
Yes, so I come from a workforce development background. I used to work in higher ed. That was my most recent job, actually. Um, my most recent job was doing workforce development operations at the Hudson County Community
You're a
College.
little
And
low.
oh, I gotta turn my
Sorry.
volume up. Nope, that's
Sorry.
me. Okay. Uh, can you hear me now?
It's a little better.
Okay, good. Let me get rid of this. So,
Okay,
I
yes.
did workforce development and I did operations, and just I recently have become more um, reading up more on astrology, being more in tune and trying to like understand how that works. And I already knew, like, as a Virgo, very nitpicky, organized, and I that's something that I love to do. So actually, while you guys were speaking, I was crocheting.
Love.
Just because it's like I'm listening. That's how like I process. But I I I have a habit, but my need is to organize things. Like when there's chaos, I like to take, it's a little exaggerating, but really when there's chaos, I like to sit there and help untangle the pieces, organize it. Everything's good, streamlined, going well for everybody is my outcome. Um, anyway, I did that in higher ed for about 18 and a half years. And when my mom had passed away towards the end of my career there, and I realized that life was really very short and I really wanted to make an impact. And I have found that doing the role I was doing, I really noticed that I was no longer, it wasn't aligning for me anymore, because
Mhm.
I was struggling. I was working way too hard to do things. And I decided that I was going to go into business on my own, really um, because my mother passed away, as I mentioned. It's just like, really, life is too short. Let's just go for it. Invest
Yeah.
in yourself. Um, you know, invest in yourself, vote for yourself. And so I ended up starting my own business. It's still fairly new. I left my job in September of last year. And I just like officially launched January of this year. I'd known Sheila now for a couple of years, but it wasn't until January that I actually had the time to sit and like, let's hang out. Let's
Yeah.
talk more because I'm really interested in what, about you, what you're doing. We met through crocheting and
Oh, yes.
yeah. So I ended up this is how Sheila and I started doing this. I'm like, just kind of pulling resources together. What can we
Hmm.
do? I love the work. I love the energy Sheila comes with, and
Oh, thank you.
I really do.
Yes.
And I was like, well, I have a Zoom account. Maybe we'll just, and it's fun. Like we get to hang out.
Yeah.
And then I get to meet some really wonderful people. So this is the second time we're doing this. And
Oh.
and I already can tell each person she talks to is going to be very different, all with the same spirit. Every time everything you said, it was like, I said, I don't really have questions because I'm absorbing everything you said because a lot resonated and it's giving me um, food to the thoughts, you know, food to chew on,
Mm-hmm.
thought wise. And I really liked how it just seems like you're competitive by nature,
Mm.
right? You have already like a career and a journey in sports and all of that behind you, going into teaching yoga. And I was so, um, I don't want to say, I'm like not impressed, but like it was very meaningful for me to hear that you're looking at it from the holistic point of view, not just yoga as is, known
Mhm.
in popular
Mm,
culture, but like really understanding why you're doing the moves, where different types of yoga and
Mhm.
why, like yoga is not just an exercise. It's like it's life. It's a whole culture. It's people's life that
yeah.
we're taking and compartmentalizing to
Mhm.
make, to essentially, what's the word? Commodify it. And
Hmm.
Mhm.
and doing it as part of a community and approaching it, in a very holistic way, I think is so important. And in Jersey City, I'm like, yeah. And,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Monticello Avenue, like I grew up in Jersey City and Monticello Avenue, I'm so happy like to see like the rebirth and the regeneration of that area. And
Mhm.
so that all of that is very meaningful for me because I'm all about community. Like I'm Filipina and
Love that.
it is always going to be about community. It's always about working together to help each other
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
you know, do well. And so I'm going to say like the business side of what I do is I do grants and operations consulting. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, and a lot of it is because of higher ed. Um, when a business is growing, you start getting those growing pains. So that's where I come in, we'll work together, we'll help untangle your thoughts, help kind of talk through what you're doing, and see how we can help your business grow and set it up infrastructure wise to be, to go into its next level. Um, I know, let's see, I'm a master, no, what is it? I'm a jack of all trades and a master of some. So I know enough to sort of get us the conversation going, get you started. What's even more important for me is that I am in touch with a community of people who are experts in what they do. So, like, you've got
Mm,
fractional CFOs, you've got
Mhm.
executive coaches. Like, I can coach from the point of, okay, you need to hire somebody. This is what you need to do. This is how you're going to transition from from doing everything to delegating. But when you want like the next level coaching, like I have people in my network
yeah.
who I will refer
Mm,
you to. Right.
very cool.
So,
And she also has this neat Ask Kath. Is it Kath?
yeah,
Ask Kath?
ask Kat.
Cat.
Love that.
Ask Kat, where we get to work together again, leaning towards the jack of all trades, master of some. I know a variety of things, and I want to. It's project based, so we'll work together one on one just to get you through a specific part of a project, get over that hump,
Mm,
get you to the next milestone. I'm about teaching people how to do things, not so much doing it for them.
Mhm.
right.
And I'm empowered. I want to make sure people feel empowered to learn how to do something, or at least know enough that when you hire somebody, if it's not
Mhm.
your favorite thing to do, that when you hire somebody, you know the questions to ask. You're not
Mhm.
Mm,
leaving it
yeah.
to somebody else to manage without you
Right.
having a frame of reference.
Mhm.
I love that. I
Yes.
love that. Very cool.
Good.
Thank you for sharing that with me. I know I was poking around your page. I said, oh, this is very cool. Very cool. I have a fashion marketing background myself and an event planning and psychology minor. Don't ask.
All related, more
Mhm.
than you know.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. I go. So though that kind of stuff, gets my rocks off. I love that stuff. It's fun.
Mhm.
It's fun. And Sheila,
Yes, ma'am.
my question for you. First of all, similar to what Katharina was saying, like you, your energy was so potent and full of vibrancy, and that like you really like were one of the people that stuck out from my mind the day that we met at
Wow.
the event that we had together. And I kid you not, I always kept like this little thought in my mind of like, I wish I had more time to talk to her. I wish I had more time to talk to her. I wish I had more time to talk to her. I wish I had more
Oh
time.
my
And
goodness.
then when you would pop up on my Instagram with your crocheting, I was like, oh my God, there she is. There she is. There she is. There she is. And then when you DM me, I was like, Okay, I feel, really blessed by that because, again, I kid you not, I was like, oh my God, there were so many people. I didn't get to talk to her. I didn't talk to her. I didn't get to talk to her. But specifically you, that had always come up in my mind. So
Oof.
appreciate you reaching out to me. Yeah, that really, and that morning that you sent me that message, the Lord knows what I was going through. I don't know. We're always going through something, right? And I was like,
Mhm.
oh my God, somebody likes me. So truly, like, people don't realize, like, mindfully how energies and we all like affect each other, and how,
Mm.
it's just one little moment
Mhm.
becomes so many bigger
Mhm.
moments later. And
Mhm.
that's why we say be careful with the kids and anyways, right? So um Sheila, can you tell me a little bit about your passion to want to put this together?
Mhm.
But secondly, like, I really will always wanted to ask, like, what started you in your crocheting and
Mhm.
what started your passion there too? Because from the day that you were showing some of your
Mhm.
work to us in person, I was like, she is so talented.
Mhm.
And it's become a lot of, like,
Mhm.
how you present. So I would love to hear more about that.
Let me start with the crochet first.
Mhm.
And then you're gonna have to remind me because my 62-year-old brain. You'll remind me of the the first question. But so my grandmother, she belonged to that union. Look for the union label. There was nothing she couldn't create. She sewed, she crocheted, she knitted. I mean, she made all of her grandchildren fantastic clothes. Just beautiful, beautiful stuff. And she would teach us. Um,
Mm.
I remember her trying to teach us when I was a teenager, and I sat with it but I didn't. I was more interested because I was a big tomboy. I was more interested to run the streets with my my male cousins, to do what they were doing because they would always say, "Oh, girls don't climb gates and fences," and I would do it.
Yeah.
I might have bruised myself, cut myself, tore open the skin or whatever, but I didn't want anybody telling me I couldn't do it. Don't
Same.
tell me I can't do that. That was as that was my thing. And so she taught us in our teenage years. I didn't pick it up again until in my 40s. And then it was a it became a therapeutic thing for me. Life was challenging and I could escape into it. And I branched out into making all sorts of crafts like my little sock dolls
I love those.
and the like. And then I started vending. I lost my job and I'm like, oh, I needed some income. So it's like maybe I can sell this stuff. And it started to sell. So yeah, I'm gonna sell.
Oh,
And I love it. I sometimes I surprise myself with the stuff that I make. Like I follow YouTube videos, but
and
this
I
guy
love him.
this guy was the most challenging thing. This is Skipton, the skeleton. I was
Okay.
making him to sell, but he has two right legs, so I'm very happy to keep him. But this was the most challenging thing I've done so far. And I think because I have big hands and it's a small scale, whatever, it was challenging, but I'm proud of him.
Perfectly imperfect, like you said.
Perfectly imperfect. And
Yeah.
and the crochet, it just helped me tap into my spirituality in a way I didn't expect. Because,
Uh-huh.
crochet is a form of meditation. And of course, meditation is a portal activity.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
it opens you up energetically. You might not necessarily consciously, but
Okay.
energetically, you're doing stuff energetically on that level. So yeah, I does that answer that question?
Yeah, yeah. I was feeling already that it had something to do with a grandmother or someone in that area. Or an aunt, right? An aunt, our aunts that watch this. Yeah, so and
Oh, why I
I,
created, why I do this?
yes,
Well,
yeah.
because I grew up being woo boy, that's a good question. I'm sharing stuff. I'm mixed race,
Mhm.
so West African, Scandinavian, and Native American, and growing up uh, was very, very challenging. Growing up in the 60s and the 70s, it was not, it was very challenging. Like,
Mm-hmm.
always, I was always on the outside, uh, on the periphery. No, I was just ostracized and I didn't understand it. I never
Right.
understood it. I just didn't. And it was very painful. It was very hurtful. And, as I get at this point in my life, it's like, screw that. I embrace who I am. I don't give
Mm-hmm.
a shit. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm creating this forum to offer women that community that I didn't have.
Yeah, I love that.
It's just so important to me. It's not just women, it's men too.
Yeah.
But it's just, if you feel like you've been ostracized by society in any way, I'm going to take you in because I don't that's just nonsense and has no place in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's goes back to like the yoga stuff, right? The yoga mentality and um that openness. It's my best friend always jokes like she's like, I know you had to go through your give them the benefit of the doubt stage part of the relationship, but I could have told you.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I've gotten, like you just said, I've gotten to the point in my life earthly journey that I'm I've accepted I'm a sensitive woman and I don't want to change that, right?
That's
And that
good for you.
sensitivity, that empathy, that those things allow me to
Mhm.
be who I need to be and what I need to be in this
Mhm.
community and in my own world.
I
Yeah.
love it.
So I don't want to change her, but I am more conscious and aware of how to balance her now and
Mhm.
how to,
Mhm.
to make sure those boundaries support me
Mhm.
and support my students and
Mhm.
support my peers and support my family members, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, I love that. I love that,
Thank you.
it's more about like letting your authentic self just be aligned with the
Mhm.
meditation, with the crocheting, with your ancestry, right?
Yeah.
Going back to your grandmother, being connected to her, me being connected to my dad in that way of teaching and mentoring. Um, it just is it's so it makes me chuckle,
Mhm.
it's a fun thing. And Katharina, for you too, is like having that like that I have a mug that's one of my Libra twins because I'm a big astrology girl too. One of my Libra twins, he came over and gave to me because he always has these ridiculous gifts, and it says the cluster FUCK fixer, right? That's me, right? I can just I'll there's chaos happening, and I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like, what's happening? And oh, okay, let's do this and like calm down.
Mhm.
So I take pride in that.
Mhm.
But in the past, it's been harmful at the same time,
Oh,
right?
sure.
So you being able to channel that into Project 5356 in a, beneficial way, but also feeding that need for you to
Mhm.
be helpful, right? Because
Mhm.
that's like it always ties back to that.
Mhm.
Like um, even in my 9 to 5, if I'm interviewing, I'm like, if you don't like helping people, client services is not for you.
Mm.
It's an older trade at this
Mhm.
point. It's a crazy thing to say, right?
Mhm.
But um, people don't train to be amazing customer service
That's
reps
true.
anymore. People throw people into those positions as a dump ground.
Mhm.
The passion for that is not tied back to retail, to fashion, to you walking into a store with your grandmother and them being familiar with your grandmother and, understanding the psychology of that shopping behavior, right? It's not as prevalent. So to be able to channel these older feelings that
Mhm.
are not so necessary in these new life roles is very creative and fun and interesting to see other women doing it because
Mhm.
I think a lot of people, excuse me, are channeling those old energies into very toxic
Mm,
ways of trying to approach life. The
mhm,
men versus women thing, the
mhm.
black versus white thing, like all
Yeah,
of those
yeah.
perspectives.
Mhm.
And I just, I refuse to participate.
Good for you.
That's where I'm
Good
at.
for you.
Yep.
The world is transitioning, literally
Yeah.
and
Yep.
spiritually, energetically. We're definitely going through a transition, and
Yeah.
so
I
it's good.
mean, quite literally right at this moment.
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah.
Like we
absolutely.
have what's Venus in retrograde,
Venus.
Mercury's in retrograde. We just went into Aries today. There's a
That's my
new
sign,
moon. Yeah.
Yeah.
When's your birthday?
the 7th of April.
Okay. So yeah, and then we got a new moon on Friday and we had an eclipse last Friday.
Yeah. March
So
is a lot.
it's a
There's a
lot.
lot going on.
There's a
Yeah,
lot going on.
But
And
to your point, I'm sorry.
yeah,
I
tell me.
wanted to say that to your point that, it's more important as we as people who are very invested in seeing our community do well. That's really the most impact we have is
Yeah.
community. So
Yeah.
that's
like
all we have.
that's all we
That's
have.
all
And
we
so
have.
like
Each other.
all the other noise is it's just
Mhm,
really that noise. It's like
mhm,
let's
Yeah.
focus on each
mhm.
other and helping each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This has been such an amazing, amazing conversation.
Yeah.
Alyssa, please tell people where they can find you.
So I have my yoga Instagram, Jade, Jade, on the mat. I have my email address for any private events you're thinking of putting together. I just recently had an inquiry about doing a birthday party for a group of friends, right? So I'm open to group classes, private, and then I also have my upcoming classes listed on my Instagram, Jade on the Mat too. So
I love it. Please stay. Don't go anywhere. We're gonna end the live stream, but we're gonna have our proper goodbye. So don't go anywhere.
okay,
And before we end, I just want to say, stay tuned, folks, because next week I'm bringing in David Sloan. He's a starseed wanderer, polymath, and we're going to be discussing disclosure, upcoming disclosure for the planet. So that's next week. See you then, folks. Namaste.
namaste. Thank you.
Thank